The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
Coming up next, ladies and gentlemen, it's the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Television right here on My24 Milwaukee. We've got a look back at the week in WWE, TNA, and Ring of Honor, along with full discussion on the epic verbal battle between The Rock and John Cena from this past Monday, along with Point Counterpoint Star of the Week and the history book looking back 1 year ago. The Pro Wrestling Report Primetime starts right now, right here on My24 Milwaukee. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime right here on My24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Octavius, the Tiberius, the alleged backyard Hardcore Divas Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer.
Hero.
Yes.
How are you?
I am tremendous.
We're on the road to WrestleMania.
Well, what, three and a half weeks away?
Just over 30 days. Actually, I think only about 30 days until WrestleMania in Miami on South Beach. Oh, man almighty. Things picked up big time this past Monday night on Raw as WWE was in full steam ahead mode for WrestleMania 28. And the centerpiece, of course, was that verbal battle between The Rock and John Cena. Rock returning to Raw for the first time in several weeks, live in person in Portland, Oregon this past Monday night. And David Hero, it was a controversial 20 minutes to end Raw because what we all thought going into it was not at all where we were coming out of it.
You know, we all thought that the great one, the most electrifying man in entertainment today, The Rock, was going to come out there and be the trailblazing, limousine riding,
son of a gun,
other things that he likes to say and do, and just completely bury John Cena. And it did not happen that way, not at all.
As a matter of fact, at times The Rock was flustered during that segment, visibly so, and he addressed the rumors at the offset, addressing the rumors that had been talked about out there from anonymous text messages and things of the like, of the fact that he's not there every week, and saying that he never said he would be there every week, but said that when he came back, he would never leave WWE. David, this is similar to what we talked about on our online edition last week, 5 more minutes, about the drama between The Rock and John Cena. Rock says he has always been there for the people. However, when John Cena's music hit and John Cena came out, the tables turned and John Cena was the stronger of the two this past Monday night on a microphone on Raw.
Who would have thought that John Cena would have been the aggressor with the great one? And that's exactly what happened. John Cena came down to that ring with a purpose. You could tell he was focused, got right up in The Rock's face and pretty much called him out. Made comments about the notes that he may have had or had not written on his wrist, and just left The Rock standing there with his mic in his hand.
John Cena owned The Rock. Would you have ever predicted that John Cena would own The Rock in a verbal battle in the ring on WWE television?
You know, I don't know if he owned him. He at least owned him for Monday night. But going forward, let's see what happens. Maybe it was done intentionally to help elevate John Cena to be at the same level as The Rock as far as interview promo skills. Maybe they had to do something to get the fans to believe that John Cena can beat The Rock in something.
It wasn't just what John Cena said. It was walking in, delivering, and walking out. And on the way out, carry on, keep on trending on Twitter.
I tell you,
them's fighting words.
It's going to make next week, Monday night, and the week after, and the week after, all the way into WrestleMania. It's going to have tons of fuel on this fire. It's going to get the fans emotionally invested to buy this pay-per-view.
John Cena and The Rock specifically, visibly irate during that segment. Well, he got up and he walked right into the face of John Cena when John Cena had, just after he called out the fact that The Rock had notes written on his hand.
Which he's never done, never ever done that.
And we'll talk more about that later, but you could see the intensity in The Rock, and it wasn't The Rock, it wasn't Dwayne, it was an angry man in John Cena's face Monday night, and it was almost what he didn't say when he did get in John Cena's face that was more important, and also important during that was the fact that John Cena smirked and didn't flinch at The Rock.
Well, what is The Rock? John Cena knows The Rock's not going to punch him. He's not going to have a...
At that moment, it seemed like he might have.
But The Rock is The Rock. He knows the people are going to be behind The Rock. He can let John Cena come out there and make fun of him all he wants. At the end of the day, who's going to get the biggest payday on April 1st in Miami at WrestleMania? It's going to be The Rock.
The notes on the wrist. In case you didn't see on Monday night, there was clearly something written on the inside wrist of The Rock. And many people pointed it out during the segment that was occurring live on television. John Cena, of course, pointing it out. As you said, David Hero, earlier on, in all the years that The Rock has been in WWE, he has never had to do that. So it leads to question whether or not it was done deliberately to be pointed out.
It has to be. How many times, Damien, have we had this talk? When something is right there staring you in the face, it's there staring you in the face. It's because there's a reason for it. Whenever there's been a title change or someone else coming in or some big shock or surprise, we've always seen the writing on the wall. We just haven't been able to read it. And right now, I honestly believe that The Rock is doing his best to help elevate John Cena. And John Cena not being elevated to main event status, but being elevated to the point where the fans believe that John Cena actually has a chance to beat The Rock in The Rock's hometown in Miami, in which may be the biggest WrestleMania of all time.
A fascinating point, because right now I would venture to say that out in the wrestling audience, nobody thinks that generally nobody thinks that John Cena can defeat The Rock at WrestleMania. The question that need be asked is, if this was deliberate, why? And was it that reason? Do they want to try to put John Cena as best they can on equal par with The Rock? Or will The Rock just destroy John Cena that much more next week? Will we go back and forth? And if we will, it's a moment of brilliance from WWE, because all it does is continue to build intrigue into the next week and the next week and the next week. And the centerpiece of WWE television going forward is going to be nothing but The Rock and John Cena, because they are the money match at WrestleMania.
It's the main event. It's the headlining main event. It's the match that's selling all the seats, all the pay-per-views, all the merchandise. Yes, there's a few other great matches with the Hell in the Cell, and then you got Punk and Jericho.
Don't spoil things.
I mean,
we're going to talk about some of that later.
Well, right, but what I'm saying is that is the match. That is what WrestleMania for the past year has been built around, is getting to this point. In the next 3 weeks, it is going to be non-stop emotion and hatred and bad blood and honest feelings, because from what I'm gathering, from what I'm hearing, Monday night was personal.
And some saying it got personal when John Cena pointed out the notes on The Rock's wrist. And if you're The Rock, and if you did need those notes for whatever reason, and you did not expect that to get called out, and it got called out, that is a bomb on a shell of the aura around The Rock. And that right there could damage him beyond repair.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean,
could.
The Rock is going to be just fine, because the people still love The Rock. They love the eyebrow raising, the know you're rolling, it doesn't matter, in the whole thing. They love the character of The Rock. But boy, in the 10 years he's been around, 12 years he's been around, we've never, ever, ever seen notes on anybody in the world of wrestling.
Never.
So that's why
Mike Adamle, though.
That's why I believe it's part of the storyline to help elevate John Cena.
If you watch it again, if you go back and look at it again, and you can do so at pwrshow.com, about the notes, and I don't want to spend as much time on this as we actually already have, but about the notes, he never really looked at them. There was one key moment where you could tell he's looking down and looking at his notes, but if if The Rock didn't want those notes to be seen, they wouldn't have been seen. It's just that simple.
It could be who knows, maybe it's a new tattoo. Who knows?
That's what I assumed. I like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
It hasn't been acknowledged by anybody yet.
John Cena did.
But I'm saying after the fact, nobody has acknowledged what it is. There's been some online pictures, some screen captures, but The Rock has yet to address it.
And I thought he would after John Cena walked away, but he did not.
You got to save it for next week. It's all about the ratings. What's The Rock going to say Monday night?
These two men legitimately hate each other. It started back at the Hall of Fame in 2008 when The Rock took some jabs at John Cena. John Cena has been relentless in his discussions about his personal feelings about The Rock ever since.
Wait a minute. The Rock didn't start this. This was all John Cena. He started calling out The Rock first about him leaving for Hollywood.
True.
Be careful what
but
you
it
wish
continues, and it will come to a head at WrestleMania 28 on April 1st. I, for one, can't wait to see it. We're going to talk a lot more about this, including comparing it to the situation between Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, which is eerily similar, in this week's edition of PWR 5 More Minutes, which can be found exclusively after the primetime episode airs on PWRshow.com. There's still a lot more to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report, including Star of the Week and more WWE news, the TNA Report looking at Impact this past Thursday night, Counterpoint, and the history book looking at 3-3-11, which was the return of Sting to TNA Wrestling. Pro Wrestling Report Primetime continues right here on My 24 Milwaukee.
Miami, South Beach, the biggest wrestling event of the year. Bikinis, booze, and beaches. And the biggest wrestling party ever. The Pro Wrestling Report presents the Shenanigans Beach Party, hosted by Big Sexy Kevin Nash and Sean X-Pac Waltman. Join us at one of the best clubs on South Beach, Ocean's 10, located at 960 Ocean Drive, on Friday, March 30th, starting at 7 p.m. for live music, bands, drinks, and a ton of shenanigans. The Shenanigans Beach Party will feature appearances by Billy Gunn, TNA TV champion Robbie E., former WWE Tag Team Champions The Headbangers, Shane Hurricane Helms, along with others, and special appearances by Arda Ocal and Jimmy Corderas of The Score, Justin LeBar, and Josh Eisenberg of Chairshots Reality, and the PWR team of Damian Nelson, David Hero, and the Coyote Ugly Calendar Girl, Linda Kay. Tickets for the biggest wrestling party ever are on sale now at PWRshow.com and start at just $15. VIP tickets, which include a private meet and greet along with early access, are available for only $99 each, but quantities are very limited, so buy now. Tickets are going fast for the PWR Shenanigans Beach Party, so buy yours now only at PWRshow.com. And don't miss out on the biggest wrestling party ever. Hosted by Kevin Nash and Sean Waltman.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime Television right here on My 24 Milwaukee. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero, and now it's time to continue talking about World Wrestling Entertainment, because Raw was very, very important this past Monday night as WWE continued their trek towards Miami, towards WrestleMania, and in addition to The Rock and John Cena, it should be noted how great Chris Jericho and CM Punk were in the opening segment, and as a matter of fact, the first 35 or 40 minutes of WWE Raw focused on your two championship matchups at WrestleMania between Sheamus and Daniel Bryan and Chris Jericho and CM Punk. Jericho and Punk are battling it out verbally to determine who is the best in the world. We've been waiting for this for a while, David Hero. It came to a head this past Monday night.
And you know what? It was interesting because both guys had very interesting points to make. Mm-hmm. Punk obviously saying that Jericho's never been the main guy. But Punk seems to forget that when Jericho was the main guy with the belt around his waist, with the double belts, he had to compete with Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock,
one night,
Triple H, Mick Foley, DX, Kurt Angle, The Undertaker, all those guys were there. Now that Punk is the main draw, he's competing with John Cena.
But arguably, Chris Jericho also holds the claim of the most forgotten WrestleMania main event of all time at WrestleMania 18.
Well, that's just, and it may happen again this year because let's face it, Rock and Hogan is a once in a lifetime.
Right.
I mean, there was another rematch, but as far as once in a lifetime Rock and Hogan, now it's Cena and Rock, another well, it might be a 3-time in a lifetime, but another once-in-a-lifetime main event that people are going to be talking about. That right there is the sexy as opposed to the steak of Punk and Jericho. Punk and Jericho is going to be fantastic, by the way.
It could be, and you talked about this on Twitter this past Monday night, it could be as good, if not as great, as the matchup between Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, who celebrated a birthday earlier this week, and Randy Macho Man Savage, the late great Randy Macho Man Savage. These two are wrestlers, and it will be a great wrestling contest, and I was very, very impressed by the fact that they several times referenced wrestling wrestler this past Monday night. Now, arguably, Chris Jericho is indeed much better than CM Punk for various reasons. Chris Jericho has held more championships.
Whoa, you better be careful.
Chris
You're going to get heat for that.
Chris Jericho has held more championships. Chris Jericho has been in the business longer. Chris Jericho
has been dancing with the stars
while CM Punk was swimming with sharks. Now, while CM Punk may have climbed the reins of WWE against adverse circumstances, he couldn't have climbed those reins if WWE had not allowed him to. Chris Jericho was a man swimming with sharks, if you will, during a time where, as you mentioned, David Hero, there were a lot of other people in that sea, including The Rock, including Stone Cold Steve Austin, including Triple H, and many others. So with that point alone, it seems as if the best in the world historically, maybe not right now, but historically, is indeed Chris Jericho.
Chris Jericho, he is a total package. He's an entertainer.
He's not Lex Luger.
No, but you know, he's the crossover guy. He's done it all. He's done the movies. He's done the TV. He's been everywhere. He's done the TV shows, the Rock Band, the whole deal. Chris Jericho can be put in any situation, and he can normally succeed. He's hosted his own game show.
After that matchup, Sheamus getting involved, Chris Jericho getting involved again, the matchup between Daniel Bryan and CM Punk. So much focus on those two main events at WrestleMania, and again, those two main events that could not happen if it were not for Rock, Cena, Triple H, Undertaker, which we heard nothing about, really, aside from video still to come promos during that first segment of Raw. I think that shows the stake that WWE is putting into these two matchups, and we'll see it play out in Miami. Eve looks good to us, Dave Hero. Eve, given some promo time in the ring, she tries to explain herself. The attitude she spewed was tremendous.
Well, once again, another Eve with an apple, tempting everybody. But you know what? They're doing a great job with Eve, but where is she going to wind up? I mean, she's not really actively wrestling right now.
She did on Smackdown last night.
But she's not going for any title match, because now that she's a heel and Beth Phoenix is a heel, they're not going to fight each other. Going to be very interesting to see if Zack Ryder comes back soon and how those two are going to play out going into WrestleMania.
The Miz wants a shot at WrestleMania. He posted a video out to Twitter that you can view at pwrshow.com. He got pedigreed by Triple H off air during the commercial break, got beat by John Cena. The Miz, a valid argument, but I'm not sure there's stake behind that sizzle.
What has The Miz done lately? He's done nothing but
the valid piece of the argument being he did headline last year's WrestleMania. However, he lost to that same man who he beat at last year's WrestleMania in the ring this past Monday night. Will The Miz have a match at Mania, David Hero?
Absolutely. Opening Battle Royal.
We talk a lot more about this past week in WWE on this week's 5 More Minutes, including Smackdown, a big match announced for WrestleMania, and a firing as well. You can see that online, pwrshow.com, Saturday, 10:30 p.m., right after prime time, right here on My24 Milwaukee. For now, let's go into this week's Star of the Week, and I can't wait to find out who it's going to be this week. David Hero, take it away.
This week's PWR Star of the Week is the one, the only John Cena. Yes, who would have thought?
I can't see that.
John Cena, the you can't see me guy, walks down to the ring and delivers a verbal smackdown to the great one, to The Rock, of all people, leaves the ring. The crowd is in shock and awe. I can't believe it. John Cena finally shows up and takes care of business and is this week's PWR Star of the Week.
Impressive. Very impressive. Well, let's talk about the Ring of Honor wrestling episode that you just watched before PWR here on My24 Milwaukee, and a big match made for WrestleMania weekend featuring a man who I think is one of the stars in Ring of Honor wrestling, a standout star in Ring of Honor wrestling, Roderick Strong. Roderick Strong defeating Eddie Edwards for the title shot. There were some referee shenanigans involved with this, which brought out Jim Cornette, who then made the match. It's a 3-way, Richards, Strong, and Edwards. WrestleMania weekend in Fort Lauderdale. That match shall be #tremendous.
That match could go 90-minute draw.
And I'd watch every minute of it.
I mean, those three guys can go talk about a wrestling fan's dream match right there, those three guys.
That match occurring on March 30th in Miami, Florida, as part of the big Ring of Honor weekend there. And again, props go out to Ring of Honor. Their production, their television, looking so much better week in and week out on the stations in which it's broadcast on the Sinclair Broadcast Group across the country. Still to come here on the Pro Wrestling Report, we're going to talk about TNA Impact Wrestling from this past Thursday night. We're going to have counterpoint, looking at whether or not The Rock or John Cena needs to turn heel before WrestleMania, and the history book looking at 3/3/11, where a new TNA World Heavyweight Champion was crowned. This is the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time right here on My 24 Milwaukee.
On sale right now at PWRshow.com. Get all the latest Pro Wrestling Report merchandise, including the Fella t-shirt, Yabba Dabba Bitch, and the ever-popular Milwaukee 316 on the front and on the back. All of the pay-per-view events that happen in Milwaukee. Get all this merchandise, including the tremendous t-shirt, and much, much more, available right now at PWRshow.com. PWRshow.com. All the latest PWR gear on sale right now.
Saturday, March 31st. History will be made for internet wrestling fans. 3 of the biggest shows for wrestling commentary will come together for a WrestleMania weekend special. Pro Wrestling Report's Damian Nelson and David Hero will join with Aftermath's Artur O'Cal and Jimmy Corderas, who will join with Chairshot Reality's Justin LaBar and Josh Eisenberg for a WrestleMania special weekend. Friday from 7 till close, join the 3 shows at the 2nd annual Kevin Nash WrestleMania party at Ocean's 10. VIP tickets are $99. General admission ticket is $15. Tickets can be purchased at PWRshow.com. Saturday, history will be made as the 3 shows come together on camera. 1 p.m. at Shucker's Bar and Grill. Come be a part of the taping for the WrestleMania special that will air WrestleMania Sunday on WrestleZone.com. All ages are welcome to come get their face on camera during the taping, then hang out with the whole crew on the beautiful patio at Shucker's Bar and Grill.
Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time, ladies and gentlemen. I want to throw a special shout out to all of you in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for watching the program each and every week right here on My 24. We appreciate all of your support and all of the feedback that you've been giving us, and we want to thank all of you for tuning in on your television screens each and every Saturday night after Ring of Honor Wrestling. Pro Wrestling Report Prime Time is your one-stop shop for all that happened in professional wrestling the week before. Now it's time to go into this week's Counterpoint, and this week's question is, does The Rock or John Cena need to turn heel before WrestleMania? This question actually submitted to us on Twitter by Twitter user @BarefootJames, and the question shall be answered by both of us. One of us will make a point, the other shall counterpoint, and David Hero, so you won't complain, I'll let you start
I get to go first? That's fantastic. Without a shadow of a doubt, The Rock and John Cena, they definitely do not have to go first for anything. I mean, as far as who turns heel first. John Cena is a star. The Rock is a star. Both guys, baby faces, sell a ton of merchandise going into WrestleMania on April 1st. That's the most important thing they can do right now. Let John Cena turn heel the month after when he's wrestling somebody else. The fans are expecting a heel turn by John Cena. Don't give it to him yet. Wait until the following month when The Rock and John Cena headline WrestleMania.
God, that's over. I cannot believe that you have just sat here on this program next to moi and read notes off your wrist. Who do you think you are?
It's a tattoo.
You know the heat that's caused by that. It's not a tattoo. It says right there everything you just said right on your wrist.
Just certain dates. I didn't want to forget a few things.
Unbelievable. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, either The Rock or John Cena does need to turn heel before WrestleMania because Miami's going to be completely for The Rock. They're going to be completely for The Rock. So you got to make sure that Cena plays that role of bad guy to what will be the good guy, The Rock. It's quite simple. As Tony Schiavone used to say, it's elementary at this point. It's this week's Point Counterpoint, ladies and gentlemen. Let's talk a little bit about TNA Impact Wrestling that occurred this past Thursday night on Spike TV in that opening segment.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin's own Austin Aries. Good for Austin Aries.
Let's back up a little bit. Last week after Impact, Austin Aries sent out a tweet referencing Sting being done, if you will, and saying that he's not done. He's still taking the time of the younger talents off TV. Well, TNA making this into a bit of a story and capitalizing on it on this Thursday's Impact. I, for one, love it because Aries is, not to steal it from Triple H, but Aries is that damn good.
Well, right now, Austin Aries is perhaps one of the top 4 guys in that company as far as work rate goes. He's done a great job with the X Division. He's helped elevate certain guys in the X Division. He's had almost every night in and out one of the best matches on the card, and he can cut a hell of a promo. And let's not forget he wears a cape, so you know that's got to score some cool points. But Austin Aries gonna be on his way to semi-main eventing in TNA Wrestling.
ODB back in action in TNA Wrestling as well, having a matchup with Madison Rayne. It's great to see ODB back in regular competition in Impact Wrestling.
You know what's amazing right now with TNA Impact Wrestling is you got Austin Aries, you got ODB, 2 tremendous stars that spent a lot of time in the Milwaukee land area. And then I'm hearing there's rumors of the return of the guy from Green Bay, Wisconsin. That's mine. So right now, TNA is starting to have some of those homegrown talents come back live on Impact.
And they're focusing, and what has been their focus, especially with the creative changes of late, is to focus on certain talents, certain stories, and not try to cram so much into Impact, which arguably has been an issue with Impact over the last few months. This week's Impact, last week's Impact, very strong television wrestling programs.
With the exception of wondering, before they explained it this past week, the week prior when Kurt Angle came down and interfered with Jeff Hardy, there was no reason for it.
The two now have a match at Victory Road, substantial, because it was 1 year ago at Victory Road that Jeff Hardy, well, didn't do quite so well in his matchup against Sting. Victory Road taking shape. Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, that pay-per-view coming up in just a couple of weeks from TNA Wrestling. Where is Anderson? Where has he been? You talk about him potentially returning in the next few weeks, but where the heck has
Ken Anderson has been busy doing movies. He has a movie coming out in April. And let's not forget, he has a brand new website, MrKenAnderson.com, new clothing line coming out. He's been just getting himself prepared for what's coming up. And that's going to be a pay-per-view at Victory Road, which is Super Friend Points. Boy, Ken Anderson's coming back in the nick of time.
Brian Kendrick gone from TNA Impact Wrestling. He has spoken out about his release. You can read his comments at pwrshow.com. And also some interesting comments from CM Punk regarding a recently missing D'Angelo De Niro, the Pope, as well. You can read those comments at pwrshow.com. I believe, and I quote, he was the absolute worst, Punk said, about the Pope. That's this week's TNA Impact Wrestling Report. Let's now go to the history book, David Hero, and it was 1 year ago today, actually, that 3-3-11 showed its face. If you don't recall, last year when WWE reintroduced The Undertaker, it was 2/21/11, those promos that kept airing, and then a lot of people thought it was going to be Sting. Well, it wasn't Sting. However, we would later find out even recently that it was almost Sting, who was very close to signing with WWE. It would indeed be The Undertaker who would return. Well, TNA, not one to be left behind, had some big tapings, I believe, in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and started their own little vignettes, very similar to what WWE had done with 3-3-11. This was initially viewed as a pathetic attempt at riding WWE's
coattails.
So
let me get this straight. Sting passed up the opportunity to wrestle The Undertaker at WrestleMania in Atlanta, WCW's home base, and instead chose to have a match with Jeff Hardy that was under 3 minutes long.
A match in which he won the TNA World Championship, which really did set the internet wrestling community on fire with the focus on, at the time, a 52, I believe, year-old champion. But since then, Sting hopping into a much different role with TNA Impact Wrestling. At that time, though, David Hero, this was not a good time for TNA.
No, I mean, I thought they would have maybe 6 months to a year left after that. And
You did give them a year. We're coming up on that. You gave them a year after Victory Road, which was March 13th last year.
So it's like, how about that? Right now, TNA Wrestling still in business, and once again, they've done a reset, not only with creative, but with the stars they're going to be pushing.
That's this week's history book, looking back at the return of Sting, 3/3/11 in TNA Wrestling. I want to remind all of you to check out the Pro Wrestling Report on Facebook, our brand new Facebook page, facebook.com/PWR Show, facebook.com/PWR Show, and also visit us on our website, pwrshow.com, where you can get the extended version of the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime entitled 5 More Minutes, where this week we'll talk about The Rock and John Cena, the comparison of those two to Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels, also the very interesting happenings from Smackdown this past week. This has been the Pro Wrestling Report Primetime. For David Hero, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week right here on My 24 Milwaukee.